The glass tower of Westbridge International Consulting gleamed against the Chicago skyline, 53 floors of steel and ambition. Inside the 42nd floor conference room, 12 executives gathered for the most important presentation of the fiscal year. Elena Martinez pushed her cleaning cart past the conference room at 6:47 p.m., precisely 13 minutes before the international delegation was scheduled to arrive. Through the glass walls, she could see Patrick Sullivan, Senior Vice President of Global Operations, pacing nervously while adjusting his tie for the fourth time in as many minutes. "The Japanese team lands in 40 minutes, Sullivan barked into his phone. "Where the hell is our translator?" Elena kept her eyes down, her navy blue uniform nearly invisible against the corporate backdrop. At 52, she'd perfected the art of being unseen, moving through executive spaces like a ghost, emptying trash bins while billion-dollar deals unfolded around her. "Traffic from ahead," came the tinny voice through Sullivan's speakerphone. "Translator says minimum 90 minutes. Sullivan's face reddened. 90 minutes. The Takahashi Group specifically requested this meeting time. They are our largest potential client. Do you understand what's at stake here?" Elena paused at the water cooler, refilling the dispenser with practiced efficiency. Her hands moved automatically while her ears caught every word, a skill honed over 17 years of cleaning corporate offices. "What about the backup translator?" Sullivan demanded. "Unavailable. Conference in Boston." "Jesus Christ." Sullivan ended the call and turned to his team. "Anyone here speak Japanese? Anyone?" Silence. 12 highly educated executives, 6 Ivy League degrees among them, collectively fluent in exactly one language. "This is a disaster," muttered Jennifer Chen, Director of Client Relations. "Takahashi specifically said he prefers conducting initial meetings in Japanese. It's a cultural trust thing." Elena finished with the water cooler and moved to empty the recycling bin near the conference table. Her fingers sorted paper from plastic with automatic precision, a motion repeated thousands of times over nearly 2 decades. "What about translation apps?" suggested Marcus Reed, a junior analyst fresh from Wharton. Sullivan shot him a withering look. "You want to conduct a $50 million negotiation through Google Translate. That's insulting. It shows we're not prepared, that we don't respect their culture." Elena lifted the recycling bin, her eyes briefly scanning a discarded draft of the presentation. The proposal was good, Westbridge's market analysis was thorough, their strategic recommendations sound. But without proper communication, brilliance meant nothing. "Maybe we reschedule," Jennifer offered weakly. "Takahashi flies back to Tokyo tomorrow. This is our only window." Sullivan sank into a chair, the weight of impending failure visible in his shoulders. The elevator chimed down the hall, 6:53 p.m., 7 minutes early. Through the glass walls, Elena watched a group of impeccably dressed Japanese businesspeople emerge, led by an elderly man whose bearing commanded immediate respect. "They are early," Sullivan whispered, panic rising in his voice. "They are actually early." Elena finished emptying the bin and returned it to its place. As she pushed her cart toward the door, she heard Sullivan's desperate whisper to his team. "Just smile, Bo, and pray someone on their side speaks English." She reached the conference room threshold and paused. In her mind, she heard her abuela's voice from 40 years ago. "Elenita, when God gives you gifts, hiding them is the same as throwing them away." Elena turned back. "Excuse me, Mr. Sullivan." Her voice was soft, accented, easily dismissed. Sullivan glanced at her with the same expression he might give an interruption from a vending machine. "Not now. We're in the middle of a crisis. I speak Japanese, sir. Also Mandarin, Korean, and Portuguese." Elena kept her voice level. "I can help with your meeting." The conference room went silent. 12 executives stared at the cleaning woman like she'd materialized from another dimension. Sullivan blinked. "You, what?" "I speak Japanese. Fluently. I can translate your presentation." A snort came from Marcus Reed. "The janitor speaks Japanese. Come on." Elena met his eyes calmly. "I have a master's degree in international linguistics from the University of Sao Paulo. I'm certified by the American Translators Association in 5 languages. I can provide credentials if needed. Sullivan's expression cycled through disbelief, confusion, and something that looked uncomfortably like calculation. If you have those qualifications, what are you doing cleaning offices? The question hung in the air, the one Elena had heard in 1,000 different forms over 17 years. The one that assumed poverty was a choice, that circumstances were always within control, that the world was fair to those with credentials. I clean offices to pay my bills while caring for my mother with Alzheimer's, Elena said simply. I also translate documents freelance at night and teach ESL classes on weekends. But right now, your clients are in the elevator, and you need someone who can say Tokahoshi-sama, Westbridge International Yokoso, without Google Translate. Sullivan stared at her, suspended between desperation and prejudice. The elevator dinged again. Closer now. This is insane, Jennifer whispered. We can't have our janitor translate a $50 million deal. Do we have a better option? Sullivan shot back. The delegation entered the hallway. Through the glass, Elena counted 7 people, their polished appearance and coordinated movement speaking to serious business intent. 30 seconds, Mr. Sullivan, Elena said quietly. You can introduce me as a member of your consulting team, and I'll facilitate your meeting professionally. Or you can attempt this meeting without proper translation and likely lose the largest client contract in Westbridge history. Your choice. Takahoshi's group approached the conference room door. Sullivan made his decision. Everyone, this is Elena. Sullivan paused, realizing he didn't know her last name despite 17 years of her cleaning his office. Martinez, Elena supplied. Elena Martinez. Elena Martinez, one of our cultural consultants. The lie came easily to Sullivan, smoothed by years of corporate spinning. Elena set her cleaning cart aside and entered the conference room properly for the first time in nearly 2 decades. The space looked different from this angle, the leather chairs more imposing, the view more spectacular, the power dynamics more obvious. Takahoshi entered with his delegation, and Elena immediately noted the subtle hierarchies in their positioning. She stepped forward and bowed at precisely the correct angle for a business introduction, 15 degrees, holding for exactly 2 seconds. Takahoshi-sama, Westbridge International Yokoso Arashimashita. Watashi wa Martinez Tomoshimasu. Kyo no keiji no tsuyaku o tsutomamasaru koto ni naramashita. Takahoshi's eyebrows rose slightly, not shock, but pleasant surprise. He responded in rapid Japanese, his tone warming noticeably. Elena translated smoothly. Mr. Takahoshi says is honored by Westbridge's attention to proper protocol. He didn't expect to find a Japanese speaker of such quality at a Chicago consulting firm. Sullivan's relief was visible. Please tell Mr. Takahoshi we're honored by his visit and have prepared a comprehensive presentation. As Elena translated, she noticed the younger members of Takahoshi's team exchanging glances. One woman, perhaps 35, leaned toward her colleague and whispered something in Japanese, not expecting anyone to understand. She doesn't look like a consultant. That's a custodial uniform. Elena's expression didn't change. Years of being underestimated had taught her the power of strategic silence. The presentation began. Sullivan led with market analysis, and Elena translated with simultaneous interpretation technique, rendering his English into Japanese with barely a second's delay, maintaining his tone and emphasis while adding appropriate honorifics. 10 minutes in, Takahoshi interrupted with a detailed question about market penetration strategies in Southeast Asian territories. Elena translated the question precisely, noting Sullivan's momentary panic. The question referenced data from page 4 to 7 of the supplemental materials, which apparently he hadn't fully reviewed. Could you ask Mr. Takahoshi to clarify the specific territories he's referring to? Sullivan stalled. Elena translated, then listened to Takahoshi's response. But instead of immediately translating back, she added quietly in English, Mr. Sullivan, he's asking about the Vietnam and Philippines projections specifically. That's Appendix C, Section 4. Sullivan shot her a grateful look and fumbled for the correct page. The meeting continued, and Elena found herself doing more than translating. She was bridging two business cultures, softening Sullivan's occasionally blunt American directness into more appropriate Japanese business courtesy, while rendering Takahashi's formal Japanese into the kind of English that would resonate with Westbridge's corporate culture. But as the meeting progressed, she noticed Marcus Reed watching her with increasing skepticism. He leaned toward Jennifer Chen and whispered, loudly enough for Elena to hear, "How do we even know she's translating accurately? She could be saying anything." Elena continued translating Takahashi's question about quarterly projections without missing a beat, but she felt the room's attention shift. The seed of doubt had been planted. "Actually," Marcus interrupted, "I think we should verify some of this translation. No offense, but this is pretty important." Sullivan frowned. "Reed, she's been translating for 30 minutes. Takahashi seems satisfied. But how do we know? What if she's actually just making things up? I mean, she was literally cleaning these offices an hour ago." Takahashi noticed the disruption and asked Elena in Japanese what was being discussed. She translated honestly. "One of the team members is expressing concern about translation accuracy." Takahashi's expression cooled slightly. In Japanese, he said, "Please inform your colleague that I can tell the difference between competent translation and Google Translate. Ms. Martinez has been exceptional." Elena translated this, but Marcus persisted. "With all due respect, Mr. Takahashi, maybe we should continue this with a professional translator. Someone with actual credentials." "I have credentials," Elena said calmly. "American Translators Association certification in 5 languages. Master's degree in international linguistics. 15 years of professional translation experience." "So you say." Marcus pulled out his phone. "But we're making $50 million decisions here. We need verification." Sullivan shifted uncomfortably. "Reed, this really isn't." "No, it's fine," Elena interrupted. "I'm happy to provide documentation. Though I should mention that Mr. Takahashi has been speaking among his team this entire time in Japanese, assuming no one here understands. Perhaps he'd like to know I've been listening." The room went silent. Takahashi's head turned sharply toward his delegation, then back to Elena. In careful English, he asked, "You understood our side conversations?" "Yes, sir. Including when Ms. Nakamura commented on my uniform 20 minutes ago." Ms. Nakamura's face went pale. Elena continued in Japanese, addressing Takahashi directly. "I apologize if my appearance doesn't match expectations. I maintain 2 careers, translation and custodial work, to care for my mother. I should have disclosed my full understanding at the start. That was a breach of professional ethics." Takahashi studied her for a long moment, then did something unexpected. He smiled, genuinely, and responded in Japanese. Elena translated for the room. "Mr. Takahashi says a person who works 2 jobs to care for family demonstrates the kind of character that is more valuable than any credential. He asks if I might continue translating." Marcus Reed's face reddened. "This is ridiculous. Sullivan, you can't seriously be okay with this. We have protocols. We have standards." "The standard," Elena said quietly, "is competent translation that serves the client's needs, which I'm providing. You're a janitor. I'm a translator who also works as a custodian. Those identities aren't mutually exclusive, Mr. Reed." Jennifer Chen spoke up, her discomfort visible. "Maybe we should take a short break. Let Elena provide her credentials, verify everything properly. Or," Marcus pressed, "we could postpone this meeting until we have an actual professional translator." Takahashi, who had been following the English conversation more than the Americans realized, raised his hand. In accented but clear English, he said, "Ms. Martinez is professional translator. I work with many translators in 30 years business. She is in top 10%. Meeting continues." The statement landed with the weight of a gavel. Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. Sullivan nodded quickly. "Of course, Mr. Takahashi. Please, let's continue." But the dynamic had shifted. The Westbridge team was divided. Sullivan and a few others focused on the deal, but Marcus and several others kept glancing at Elena with barely concealed skepticism. Every translation now carried the weight of suspicion. Elena continued her work with perfect professionalism, but she felt the familiar ache of having to prove herself twice, once for her competence, twice for her right to use it. During a brief pause while Sullivan switched presentation slides, Elena heard Marcus whisper to another analyst, "I'm reporting this to HR. This is completely inappropriate." Elena's hands remained steady as she prepared to translate the next section. She'd been reported to HR before, 17 years ago, when she'd first corrected an executive's Spanish in a client email. The complaint had been dismissed, but the message was clear: stay in your lane. But this time felt different. This time, there was a room full of witnesses, a major client at stake, and a paper trail that would extend all the way to the C-suite. Takahashi asked a complex question about regulatory compliance in 3 different markets. Elena translated it perfectly, watching Sullivan scramble to formulate a response that wouldn't reveal the gaps in Westbridge's actual research. And in that moment, Elena realized something. She wasn't just translating a business meeting. She was exposing the gap between Westbridge's polished exterior and its actual operational competence. Every question Takahashi asked revealed another area where their preparation was surface level, their expertise more assumed than actual. The meeting continued, but Elena could feel the tension building. This wasn't going to end with a simple contract signature and mutual appreciation. Something was about to break. The breaking point came 43 minutes into the presentation. Takahashi asked a question in Japanese that was technically simple but culturally complex, a query about how Westbridge would handle potential conflicts between American and Japanese corporate values in joint ventures. Sullivan, reading from prepared materials, gave a generic answer about respecting cultural differences and finding common ground. Elena translated, but she could see Takahashi's disappointment. The answer was technically correct but spiritually empty, the kind of corporate speak that meant nothing. Takahashi responded with a follow-up question, speaking more quickly now, his tone suggesting this was a test. Elena translated. Mr. Takahashi asks specifically about situations where American emphasis on individual achievement conflicts with Japanese collective responsibility. How does Westbridge navigate this in practice? Sullivan glanced at his notes. There was nothing there. We believe in finding balance between individual and collective success. More corporate nothing. Elena translated faithfully, but her voice carried a subtle flatness that any skilled communicator would recognize. Takahashi sat back, his expression neutral but telling. In Japanese, he said to his team, they don't actually understand. The translator is competent, but the company is not. Elena faced a choice. The ethical translator renders words, not judgments. But the ethical human doesn't enable deception. She translated for the Westbridge team. Mr. Takahashi says the translation is competent but notes the company may need deeper cultural preparation. It was softer than what he'd actually said, but closer to the truth than Sullivan's scripted answers. Marcus jumped on it. See, even the translator is saying we're not prepared. This whole thing is a mess. He looked at Sullivan. This is exactly what I'm talking about. We brought a janitor into a $50 million meeting, and now we're getting called out for being unprepared. That's not what I said, Elena corrected calmly. But you implied it. I translated Mr. Takahashi's concern accurately. The preparation issue isn't about translation, it's about understanding the actual client needs beneath the surface questions. Sullivan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned, and stepped away from the table. Excuse me one moment. The room fell into awkward silence. Takahashi and his team spoke quietly among themselves in Japanese. Elena heard fragments of their assessment, professional but increasingly skeptical. Sullivan returned, his face pale. Elena, could I speak with you outside for a moment? They stepped into the hallway. Sullivan's professional veneer had cracked. I just got an email from Marcus. About you being in this meeting. They want to know why a custodial employee is representing the company without proper authorization. I'm not representing the company. I'm providing translation services as requested. That's not how they see it. Sullivan ran his hand through his hair. They are saying this is a liability issue. What if something goes wrong? What if you make a mistake? The insurance implications alone. I haven't made any mistakes. That's not the point. Sullivan's voice rose, then dropped as he remembered the glass walls. The point is, you're a janitor. You clean offices. That's your job description. Anything else creates legal exposure for the company. Elena felt the familiar weight settling on her shoulders. Credentials didn't matter. Competence didn't matter. What mattered was the box they'd put her in 17 years ago. So you want me to leave? Sullivan hesitated. I need you to finish this meeting. But afterward, we need to discuss your boundaries as an employee. Through the glass, Elena could see Takahashi checking his watch. His team was starting to gather their materials, the universal signal that patience was wearing thin. Mr. Sullivan, with respect, your company is about to lose a $50 million contract because your team is more concerned with my job title than with serving your client. I suggest you decide what matters more. She walked back into the conference room without waiting for his response. Takahashi looked up as she entered. In Japanese, he asked, "Is there a problem, Ms. Martinez?" Elena made a decision. No more softening, no more protecting Westbridge from its own failures. Takahashi-sama, I must be transparent with you. I am employed by Westbridge as a custodial worker, not as an official translator. I offered to help today because your meeting was at risk, but some members of the company are uncomfortable with my participation. I want you to have full information before continuing. Takahashi's expression sharpened. He stood, and his entire delegation stood with him, a coordinated movement that screamed decades of working together. Sullivan rushed back in. "Mr. Takahashi, please." Takahashi raised his hand. In clear English, he said, "Ms. Martinez just demonstrated more integrity than your entire presentation. She tells truth when lie would be easier. This is character of person I do business with." He turned to Sullivan. "You have skilled translator working as janitor for 17 years. This tells me everything about Westbridge International. You see credential, not person. You see title, not ability. In Japan, we say, no erutaka wa tsum wo kakusu, the skilled hawk hides its talons. Ms. Martinez is skilled hawk, but you never asked her to fly." Marcus started to object. "Sir, with all due respect." "Respect." Takahashi's English sharpened. "You show no respect to skilled woman because she clean floors. What respect do you show to clients? To partners?" He turned to Elena. "Ms. Martinez, you have business card." Elena blinked. I have a card for my freelance translation service. Please give me." With shaking hands, Elena pulled out her personal card, simple, printed at FedEx for $35, listing her ATA certification and languages. She handed it to Takahashi. He examined it, nodded, and placed it carefully in his card case with both hands, the traditional sign of respect. Then he handed her his own card with equal ceremony. "Westbridge does not deserve your talent," he said. "But Takahashi Group does. I am always looking for translators with character. When you are ready to work for a company that values skill over title, please call me." He bowed to Elena, not the shallow business bow, but a deeper bow of genuine respect. His entire delegation followed suit. Then Takahashi turned to Sullivan. "This meeting is finished. Not because of translator. Because of company that hides eagles and promotes peacocks. Takahashi Group will find different partner." Sullivan's face cycled through shock, panic, and desperate calculation. "Mr. Takahashi, please, if we could just—" "Ms. Martinez," Takahashi interrupted, "will you walk us to elevator? I have questions about Chicago translators for future visits." Elena glanced at Sullivan, whose expression was pure devastation. Then she looked at Marcus, whose smugness had evaporated into horror as he realized his complaint had just cost the company $50 million. "Of course, Takahashi-sama. It would be my honor." She walked out with the Japanese delegation, leaving behind 12 speechless executives and one abandoned cleaning cart. In the elevator, Takahashi's formal demeanor relaxed slightly. Ms. Martinez, I was serious about job offer. Takahashi Group needs translators for American operations. Salary is triple what Westbridge pays you for both your jobs. Full benefits, flexible schedule for family care. Elena's mind reeled. Triple salary, full benefits. I would need time to consider. My mother. We have elder care assistance program. Part of benefits package. Japanese culture understands family duty. Takahashi smiled. You helped me today knowing it could cost you job. That is person I want representing Takahashi Group. The elevator doors opened to the lobby. As the delegation prepared to leave, Ms. Nakamura approached Elena and bowed deeply. I apologize for my earlier comment about your uniform. I judged unfairly. You are exceptional translator and person of integrity. I am ashamed of my assumption. Elena accepted the apology with grace. We all make assumptions. What matters is what we do after we realize we're wrong. As the delegation departed, Elena stood alone in the lobby, holding Takahashi's business card and processing what had just happened. Her phone buzzed. A text from Sullivan. My office. Now. Elena looked at the elevator that would take her back to the 42nd floor, to Sullivan's office, to whatever consequences awaited. Then she looked at Takahashi's card. The skilled hawk, finally invited to fly. Elena rode the elevator back up, but instead of going to Sullivan's office, she retrieved her cleaning cart and headed to the HR department on the 41st floor. If this was ending, she would control the narrative. I need to file a formal report about tonight's meeting, she told the night shift HR coordinator, a young woman named Priya who'd always been kind to Elena. What happened? Elena laid out everything. Sullivan's request for translation help, Marcus Reed's objections, Takahashi's job offer, and the implicit message that her participation had been inappropriate despite saving a major client meeting. Priya listened, taking detailed notes. Elena, this is complicated. On one hand, you weren't authorized to represent the company in that capacity. On the other hand, you were asked to help in an emergency, and Marcus's complaint seems to be rooted in. She hesitated. In the fact that I'm a janitor who dared to be more, Elena finished calmly. I wasn't going to put it that way. But that's what it is, isn't it? Elena pulled out her phone and showed Priya photos of her credentials, her master's degree from the University of Sao Paulo, her ATA certification, her professional translation portfolio that included work for 3 Fortune 500 companies. All done under the name E. Martinez Professional Translation Services, during nights and weekends. You've had these credentials the whole time you've worked here? Priya asked, stunned. 17 years. They're on file with HR, page 4 of my initial application. Priya pulled up Elena's file. She scrolled again, and there it was, buried in the application, never noticed, never questioned. A master's degree and professional certifications that no one had bothered to see because they'd already decided what Elena was. This is going to create problems, Priya said quietly. Big ones. Good, Elena replied. Because this isn't just about me. How many other people work at Westbridge in positions below their qualifications? How many immigrants with degrees are cleaning offices because their credentials aren't recognized? How many women are stuck in administrative roles because no one bothers to look at what else they can do? Priya was silent for a moment. I became an HR coordinator 3 years ago. Before that, I was in payroll. And before that, I was answering phones at the front desk. I have an MBA from Northwestern, but it took me 8 years to move up because I didn't look like management material. She met Elena's eyes. I'm going to make sure your report gets to the right people. Not just HR, but the CEO's office. Thank you. As Elena left HR, her phone rang. Sullivan, where are you? I said my office now. I filed a formal report with HR. Everything that happened tonight is documented. A pause. You what? You heard me. I documented the meeting, Marcus Reed's discrimination complaint about my participation, and Takahashi's job offer. It's all official record now. Elena, you don't understand what you've done. Marcus was trying to protect the company. Marcus cost you a $50 million contract because he couldn't handle the idea of a janitor being competent. That's not protection, Mr. Sullivan. That's prejudice. You're fired. The words hung in the air. Elena had expected them, but hearing them still stung. On what grounds? Insubordination. Unauthorized representation of company. Violations of your job scope. I'll see you at the unemployment hearing. With my documentation. And my recording. Your what? I recorded tonight's meeting. Standard practice for professional translators. We keep audio records for accuracy verification. My recording includes Marcus Reed's complaints, your request for my help, Takahashi's statements, and everything that followed. I'm sure it will be very interesting to a labor attorney. She hadn't actually recorded it. Translation ethics prohibited secret recording without consent. But Sullivan didn't know that, and the threat served its purpose. You can't. I'll clean out my locker tomorrow. Please have my final paycheck ready, including my accrued vacation time. 17 years worth. She hung up. Her phone rang again immediately. Different number. She answered. Ms. Martinez. This is Robert Chen, CEO of Westbridge International. I just received an urgent call from HR about tonight's incident. Can you come to my office? Elena checked the time, 9:47 p.m. The CEO was still at the office. I'll be right up. Robert Chen's office occupied the entire 53rd floor corner, with views of Lake Michigan that cost more than Elena's annual salary. He was younger than she expected, maybe 4 to 5, and looked exhausted. Ms. Martinez, please sit. I've spent the last hour on the phone with our legal team and reading your HR report. He gestured to his computer screen. I also just got off the phone with Takahashi. He called me personally to say Westbridge just lost his business because we hide eagles and promote peacocks. Those were his exact words. Elena said nothing. He also said you're the most skilled translator he's worked with in 30 years, and that you demonstrated more integrity in 2 hours than my entire executive team. I had to pull your employee file to figure out who you were. Chen's jaw tightened. Do you know what I found? That I've been cleaning offices for 17 years despite having qualifications that exceed many of your consultants. That your qualifications were on file the entire time. That in your initial interview, you mentioned your background and were told we'll keep it in mind for future opportunities. He pulled up an old document. That was 17 years ago. No one ever followed up. You were put in custodial services and apparently forgotten. Not forgotten, Mr. Chen. Decided. Someone decided that's where I belonged, and no one questioned it for 17 years. Chen stood and walked to his window, looking out at the city lights. I built this company on the idea that we find talent wherever it exists and develop it. That's our brand promise. Excellence through diversity. And we've been failing at that for nearly 2 decades. At least, Elena corrected gently. I'm probably not the only one. Chen turned back to her. You're not. I asked HR to pull files on all support staff with advanced degrees. There are 4 to 7 people at Westbridge working in administrative, custodial, or entry-level positions who have master's degrees or higher. 4 to 7. Most are women, immigrants, or people of color. His voice was tight with anger, but Elena noted it was directed inward. We're doing exactly what we tell our clients not to do. We're wasting human capital because of systemic bias. What are you going to do about it? First, I'm offering you a position as senior translator and cultural consultant. Not to save face. That ship sailed when Takahashi walked out, but because you clearly deserve it. Salary commensurate with your experience and credentials. Full benefits. Flexible schedule for your mother's care. And I'm putting you in charge of reviewing how we assess internal talent. Elena absorbed this. And Patrick Sullivan. Marcus Reed. Sullivan showed poor judgment, but at least tried to solve a problem. His suspended pending review. Reed will be terminated. His complaint was blatantly discriminatory, and it cost us $50 million. Chen met her eyes. But honestly, The money isn't what matters most. It's what their actions revealed about our company culture. And the other 4 to 6 people. Individual reviews with each person. Career counseling. Internal job postings for positions matching their qualifications. And a comprehensive policy overhaul to prevent this from happening again. Chen paused. I'm also asking the board to approve a full external audit of our hiring and promotion practices. Not because I want to, but because we clearly need it. Elena considered his words. Mr. Chen, I appreciate the offer, but I need time to consider. Takahashi offered me a position as well. I know. He told me. Chen smiled ruefully. He said you'd earned the right to choose your own path. I agree. Think about it. But if you decide to stay, I promise you'll have real authority to make changes. Not token representation, actual power to reshape our systems. As Elena left Chen's office, she felt the weight of the decision ahead. Takahashi offered escape, a new beginning with a company that valued her from the start. Chen offered redemption, a chance to fix the system that had failed her and 4 to 6 others. But first, she had to go home and check on her mother. 3 months later, Elena stood in the Westbridge International Conference Room, the same room where she'd pushed a cleaning cart just 12 weeks ago. But everything had changed. The Cultural Competence Initiative has identified 83 employees across all departments who possess qualifications exceeding their current positions. She told the executive team, now including several new faces who'd been promoted from within. 61 of them are interested in career development opportunities. We've created individual development plans for each person. Robert Chen nodded approvingly from the head of the table. What's the projected cost of the promotions and training? $2.4 million annually in salary adjustments and professional development. Versus the $50 million we lost with Takahashi, Chen noted. That's a bargain for doing what we should have done years ago. Jennifer Chen, promoted to VP after Sullivan's departure, raised her hand. Elena, I have a question. The report mentions that 12 employees declined development opportunities. Why? Various reasons. Some are close to retirement and satisfied with current roles. Others have personal circumstances that make their current positions optimal. A few, Elena paused, expressed distrust that the company's commitment is real and not just a PR response to the Takahashi incident. The room fell silent. That's fair, Chen acknowledged. Trust is earned, not declared. What are we doing to address that? Elena clicked to the next slide. Quarterly audits by an independent third party. Public reporting of diversity metrics. Creation of an employee advisory council with real authority to flag concerns. And most importantly, consequences for managers who fail to develop talent equitably. Over the next hour, Elena presented the comprehensive reforms Westbridge had implemented. Anonymous bias reporting system. Mandatory training that went beyond generic diversity modules to include specific case studies, including the night Elena translated for Takahashi. Revision of job descriptions to focus on competences rather than traditional credentials. Partnership with organizations that help immigrants get their foreign credentials recognized. After the presentation, Elena returned to her office, a real office, with her name on the door and a view of the city. Her assistant, Carmen, who'd been working in the mailroom despite having an accounting degree from Mexico, knocked softly. Senora Martinez, you have a call from Tokyo. Mr. Takahashi. Elena smiled and picked up. Takahashi-sama, it's good to hear from you. They spoke in Japanese, catching up on business and family. Takahashi's mother had passed away the previous month. Elena had sent a condolence letter in formal Japanese that had deeply moved him. I still wish you had accepted my job offer, Takahashi said. But I respect your decision to stay and fix Westbridge from within. That takes courage. Someone had to. And I realized I wasn't just doing it for me. I was doing it for the next person who walks into an office with credentials nobody sees. You are doing important work. The changes you've made at Westbridge are being noticed. I received calls 10:42 a.m. from 3 other consulting firms asking about your program. After the call ended, Elena reviewed her calendar. Meeting with HR about the Immigrant Credential Recognition Program. Lunch with 2 employees who'd been promoted from administrative roles to consulting positions. Afternoon call with a university about partnering on a research project about hidden talent in corporate environments. And at 6 p.m., she'd leave work to have dinner with her mother, whose Alzheimer's care was now covered by Westbridge's expanded elder care benefits, a program Elena had pushed for and Chen had approved. Her phone buzzed with an email from Priya in HR, subject line, Marcus Reed update. Elena opened it. Reed had filed a wrongful termination suit, claiming he'd been fired for following company protocol. The case had been dismissed. The judge's ruling noted that Reed's protocol was selective enforcement based on racial and class bias, and that his actions had cost Westbridge a major client contract due to discriminatory behavior. Elena closed the email without satisfaction. Reed's firing hadn't been about revenge, it had been about accountability. And accountability without systemic change was just punishment. Her computer chimed with a new message in the internal system. From Priya. Elena, I wanted you to know that because of your Cultural Competence Initiative, I was able to disclose my MBA to new management. They just promoted me to Director of Talent Development. 3 years ago, I was answering phones. Today, I'm designing career pathways. Thank you for proving that speaking up matters. Elena typed back, You were always qualified, Priya. The system just needed to see you. Congratulations, you earned this. That evening, Elena sat with her mother in their new apartment, larger, brighter, with a separate room for the part-time caregiver Westbridge benefits helped them afford. Elenita, you seem happy, her mother said during a rare moment of clarity. The Alzheimer's came and went, but lately there were more good moments. Mama. I'm doing work that matters. Your father would be proud. He always said you had the gift of languages to build bridges between people. I'm trying, Mama. Her phone rang. Robert Chen. Elena, sorry to bother you at home. But I wanted you to know, Takahashi just called me. He's reconsidering the Westbridge partnership. Elena sat up straighter. Really? He said the changes we've made impressed him. That a company willing to examine itself honestly and change is worth a second look. He's coming back next month for preliminary discussions. And he specifically requested you as the cultural consultant and translator. Elena smiled. I'll be ready. I know you will. Oh, and Elena, the board approved your proposal for the scholarship fund. The Elena Martinez Scholarship for Underrecognized Talent will launch next quarter. $500,000 annually for employees pursuing education or credential recognition. After she hung up, Elena looked at the jade plant on her windowsill, a cutting from the plant that had survived 17 years in the custodial supply closet. It had been nearly dead when she brought it home, but with proper light and care, it was thriving. Talent was like that, she thought. It didn't disappear just because no one was looking. It waited, resilient, for the moment when someone finally saw. 1 year later, the Chicago Tribune business section featured a prominent article. Westbridge International wins Industry Award for Talent Development Innovation. The article detailed how Westbridge's Cultural Competence Initiative had become a model for other corporations. In 1 year, the company had promoted 83 employees from underutilized positions. Revenue had increased 17% as hidden talent was properly deployed. Employee retention had reached an all-time high. The article featured a photo of Elena receiving the award on behalf of Westbridge. The caption read, Elena Martinez, Senior Vice President of Cultural Strategy and Development, transformed her company by asking one question: what talent are we overlooking? In the article, Robert Chen was quoted, Our biggest competitive advantage was already here. We just needed to learn to see it. Elena taught us that credentials on paper matter less than what people can actually do, and more importantly, that everyone deserves the chance to show what they can do. The article mentioned that Marcus Reed's wrongful termination lawsuit had been definitively rejected and that he was now working as an independent consultant with significantly reduced client base. Patrick Sullivan had left corporate consulting entirely and was teaching business ethics at a community college, a position where, ironically, he'd learned more about diverse talent in 1 semester than in 15 years at Westbridge. But the most impactful part of the article came near the end. The Elena Martinez Scholarship has supported 4 to 7 employees in pursuing credential recognition, degree completion, or career development. Of those 4 to 7, 32 have been promoted to positions matching their qualifications. The program has since been adopted by 11 other corporations. When asked what drives her work, Martinez is direct. For 17 years, I was competent but invisible. I want to make sure the next person doesn't have to wait 17 years to be seen. The final paragraph noted that Westbridge had restored its relationship with Takahashi Group, with Elena serving as the primary cultural consultant on a now $7 million partnership. Takahashi was quoted as saying, "We do business with companies that match their actions to their values." Westbridge proved they could change. That is worth investing in. At home that evening, Elena showed the article to her mother, whose Alzheimer's had stabilized with better care and reduced stress. "Mija, you changed everything," her mother said clearly. "No, Mama," Elena replied, thinking of the 4 to 6 other people whose stories had also changed, of Priya's promotion, of Carmen's accounting career finally launched, of the scholarship recipients whose talents were finally being recognized. "We changed it together. That's how it works. One person speaks up, others join their voice, and eventually the whole system has to listen." Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Ms. Martinez, my name is Kenji Park. I'm a night janitor at Midwest Financial. I have a PhD in economics from Seoul National University, but my credentials aren't recognized here. I read about you in the Tribune. Can you help me figure out how to be seen?" Elena immediately typed back, "Yes. Call me tomorrow. And Dr. Park, you're already seen. Now let's make sure everyone else sees you too." She looked out her window at the Chicago skyline, at the thousands of lit windows representing thousands of offices where talented people might be invisible, waiting for someone to finally look at what they could do instead of what they appeared to be. The quiet thunder had struck. Now came the storm of change. Remember, your credentials matter. Your experience matters. Your voice matters. Document everything. Speak up when you can. Find allies. And never stop being competent just because someone isn't looking. You are not invisible. You are thunder waiting to strike.